Hi, so today I'm coming at you live from my Lenovo's broken webcam, which is why I have cropped myself into the usable, workable space. To my left, you have blue flickering. To my right, you have pink bars, and I'm hoping that that does not invade my tiny section of usable space. Today, I'd like to talk about the topic of gentrification. This came up while I was reading a little bit about local politics, primarily from reading up on some of the candidates running for city council in my area. One of them was a Democratic Socialist who had a couple of ideas that I wanted to talk about here. Admittedly, I do not lean to the direction of that whole S word, but I'm always willing to listen to ideas from the other side of the aisle. It forces me to create better arguments, and sometimes they actually have a good idea. You never know. So let's just dig into it. Before I dig into it, I just want to say how happy I am to see anybody running, anybody at all, that would get rid of some of the people that are currently in office. So there's one individual I may link to below. So there was this game called Knockout that was getting played a few years ago, where the idea would be there would be someone who would run up to somebody else and punch them in the back of the head as hard as possible with the stated goal of knocking them out. It wouldn't be a fight where they said, "Hey, fight me," and then fought. Wrong, but different thing. It wouldn't be something where one party did something to elicit that response from the other party, like saying, "Hey, your girlfriend's ugly" or something. Not right, but I would get physical violence there. This was pure, unprovocated, just walking up to someone, sneaking up to them, and punching them in the back of the head with the goal of knocking them out. And my current city councilwoman had more sympathy and empathy for the people running up to people and punching them than the actual people they knocked out. And I may link to an article below. That is this one of the many areas to which my white privilege, unfortunately, does not apply. But that is a topic for a different video. Anyway, so I'm very happy to see other people running and getting into the race. I'm very happy to see them leaving my local politics, hopefully. But let's just talk about this. So what bothers me about how gentrification is addressed is that it is often addressed at the local level, and there is no concept made of the fact that this is an external problem that happens out at the national level. Why is it that people from Lexington, Kentucky, why is it that people from Olathe, Kansas, or Brookfield, Wisconsin all want to come to this one small part of Brooklyn? It's an external national problem that for some reason we always try to solve at the internal local level, not making any reference to the concept that for every person that's coming in, that means there's somebody leaving someplace else to come here. We never address it at the motivational level of why is it that you're looking to move here? Is it possible that you can accomplish what you're looking to accomplish in a town where you don't have to squeeze 5 people into an apartment the size of a kitchen so you can pay your rent? We never seek to address it at the philosophical level. We never seem to address it at the technological level of, do we really live in a society where everybody needs to go to this specific neighborhood to accomplish this specific thing? And so long as we are continuing to try to solve this problem at the local level, we are never actually going to solve any of the problems caused by gentrification. We are only going to address the symptoms in a very, very quick fix Band-Aid way, and even worse, in a way where as we try to balance the scales, we try to kind of keep this problem from rising over here, that we only get a larger problem occurring over here over time. That's just going to keep feeding into itself like a cycle. So firstly, I'd like to discuss how it is many have tried to address the issue of housing scarcity, how some people running for public office are looking to solve those problems, some statements they've made, and then I'm going to lay into it with my opinions on the matter. Let's talk about some of the current ideas, some of the ones that make sense. So this guy proposes the idea of higher taxing on house flipping and speculation. I get it. And this makes sense. Even as someone that's wants smaller government and less taxes. How houses were designed to be homes. They were not, nobody builds a house to be solely an investment vehicle. It is a home. It is a place to live. And if you have a neighborhood with overcrowding and you have a neighborhood with all these people surging into it and rising rents and homelessness, the idea of buying a home, not living in it, not renting it out solely to be used as an investment is kind of a dick move, and I understand taxing that. Then there's also the other part of this article where he's talking about, building high rises and how developers, they just want to create this artificial scarcity. They could build up, but they say it costs too much. But the reality is that they don't want to stop with the artificial scarcity that is raising the rents. And this is where the math, in my opinion, doesn't really add up. Let's say you have a building where the rent is $4,000 a month, which is pretty expensive. $4,000 a month. You have 80 floors and 20 apartments per floor. That comes out to something around 70, $80 million a year in revenue. Let's just round it up to $80 million a year in revenue. Now, let's say that creating that building costs somewhere between 800 million to 2 billion. I would round it closer to the 2 billion rate because costs are always going up with time, and it takes time to get these projects approved by the city. It would take you something around 20 to 30 years to break even on that building. That is assuming no maintenance in the building, no janitorial staff, no one to clean the hallways, no doorman. It would assume no property tax. And do keep in mind that even in 8 to 10 unit buildings in New York City, your property tax is looking at that $36,000 to $50,000 a year margin. Imagine what it is in a high rise. It's insane. No licensing, no permits, no staff, my dishwasher isn't working, which is no appliances. And by the way, people expect appliances in a $4,000 a month apartment. Even with none of that, which is real, you're looking at 20 to 30 years to make back your investment. When you add in all the legitimate actual costs, you're looking at something more like 50, a ridiculous amount of time to make back your investment. So that idea that it doesn't really cost that much and that people are just saying this to create artificial scarcity is not exactly true. Again, when you just start adding the numbers up, which I don't think a lot of people do, you'll notice that even if you were a billionaire, it's not exactly the easiest way to make money unless you are buying buildings that already exist and very, very cheaply and then reselling later. Now, there is also the issue of the sharp rise in insurance premiums. You're looking at over the past 5 years, insurance costs for construction nearly doubling in New York City. And there's a good reason for this. It's sad, but it makes sense. In New York City, the contractor and the owner are fully liable for the worker injuries in the job, regardless of who's at fault. Can you imagine that? Of course, that we are at a point where insurance makes up something between 8 to 15% the budget of the average construction project nowadays, which is pretty high. And it just doesn't make as much sense. It's not as easy as people say when they say just make more high rises. You have to look at the figures. You have to look at the property tax, which here is insane. You have to look at the rents that you can reasonably charge. You have to look at actually chasing down tenants that don't pay their rent, which if you're a landlord, oh my God, happens like all the time. And these figures that I'm presenting of making back your money in 20 to 30 years, they go up to damn near a lifetime when you get all of this involved. Now, there was a program in the 1970s that did seek to help make the city some more revenue, where they would tell landlords that haven't paid property tax in a certain amount of time, hey, if you don't pay, we are going to take your building from you. And the idea was to create more tax revenue. And that very, very badly backfired. The landlords looked and they said, wait, so I can't charge more than this amount of rent. You got all this rent control in place there. And then you've got this property tax that keeps going up year after year. And then you're saying anytime I want to fix my building, which I need to fix it all the time because of the codes in New York City, now to make it up to code, I have to pay these New York City contractors with the higher insurance and all that other stuff to do the job. You know what? Fuck off. I'd rather you just take the building and suck my balls. And that's what a lot of the building owners did. And then the city wound up with dozens and dozens of buildings that they didn't know what to do with. The city is even worse at being a landlord than the average landlord is being a landlord. So the city is now stuck with a bunch of buildings. And what did they do? They handed them off to people that couldn't afford housing, more expensive housing, and said essentially, here, enjoy. And they were given the ability to manage the housing. And as could be expected, this may surprise you, but the impoverished people that do not have training or education in managing buildings and construction and all of this were not exactly the best at cooperatively managing the property. There was a book in 1993 that I will leave you to read called We Are the Landlords Now by Turetsky. It describes some of the successes and some of the failures that were involved in this program. And yeah, just giving people housing and saying, here, have fun, that didn't work out as well as many people planned. Now, if you look at the amount of houses that have been seized, you look at the amount of housing that the buildings that exist that the city has, I think it's something like 70 or 80 buildings just above 100th Street in Manhattan. Now, if you look at the average cost to to fix these dilapidated buildings, it's something around $100,000 or $150,000 for, to do the basics, or if you want to do a real proper renovation rather than the kind of crap that I do in my office, you'd be looking at somewhere around $200,000 to $300,000 per building. You're looking at around $16 million for 80 buildings. But even when you add up the amount of houses in those 80 buildings, okay, you fix up 80 of these small buildings. Even if you do manage to take control of a lot of these buildings, even if they are given to a community land trust, a nonprofit organization, you still need a lot of money to fix these buildings up. You need something like $140,000 to $240,000, sometimes $300,000 to get a dilapidated shitbox building that has not been properly maintained since the 70s or 80s back to code, or back to something that's at least livable. And then you have these properties that are going to be rented out to individuals who are paying between $300 to $600 a month in rent. How's that work? Now, for the community nonprofit-owned apartment buildings, you can often get a 60% subsidy from the city to pay for renovations. But then you still got that $100,000 around your neck, and you don't really have a great, sensible way to pay it back anytime in the near future where people are going to really step in and do something about it. Like, it's great to own it. Okay, how do you renovate it? And even if you do manage to renovate all these buildings, even if you do manage to give it away to community land trust and you get $16 million for all these buildings, okay, you've added 1,000, 2,000, 500, 5,000 apartments to a multi-million population city. That's a drop in the bucket. That's nothing. And the other issue you have here is that a lot of this is going to be subsidized by high taxpayers. So the rehabilitation is subsidized by the high taxpayers paying high taxes. You need more of those high taxpayers to subsidize these programs, which means that you need more people to move here. More rich people moving here means that they are then going to look for housing. As they're looking for housing, they're going to push the poor people out of their housing and pay more because they can afford to pay the $2,000 to $4,000 a month in rent on the nicer apartments. Shouldn't even say nicer, because $2,000 in New York doesn't get you shit anymore. Sad. But so, which means that you're going to have more people kicked out of their home, which means more problem from gentrification. But you fix that from the subsidy. But to get the subsidy, you need the high taxpayers, which creates more gentrification, which you see, it's a cycle. And it's a cycle that is very difficult to break. And it is a cycle that is difficult to see if you don't understand the basic supply and demand aspect of, hey, I want there to be less NYU dorms and classrooms. I'm going to make that happen by going to an NYU school. Jesus. And the lack of understanding of supply and demand is what sparked me to make this video. So I was reading a part from here where it was saying that the gentleman was protesting the idea of NYU expanding in the East Village. They're expanding, they're taking up too much of this space. And he went to NYU. It's like the fundamental lack of understanding of the concept of supply and demand when talking to many who identify in any way, shape, or form with the S word is part of what motivated this video. So, how about this? If you don't want NYU to expand in neighborhood X, then you should not give NYU money to attend their school in neighborhood X. Go to someplace else. It completely makes sense for NYU to say, hey, we have a lot of students that are choosing to come to our school in this particular neighborhood. Let's expand in this particular area, which is a known good that people want to send their kids to, that people want to pay a crazy amount of money for, rather than send our kids to school somewhere else. I talk about why I don't like Apple products. I use a ThinkPad. I don't buy them. It's that simple. Don't increase demand for the very thing that you are saying there should be less supply of. If you want less NYU dorms, less NYU classrooms in the East Village, do not go to NYU. Do not give them your money. There are many dorms, there are many colleges located outside of that area. Go to a local college. Go somewhere else. You do not need to get your education at NYU. Now, what I would suggest, rather than trying to fix the problems that result from gentrification, rather than fixing the symptoms, why don't we fix the underlying problem? So what is gentrification? Gentrification is when people from everywhere else want to move here, and it drives up the cost of living here because all these people from there want to live here. They think that living here is the shit. They think it's amazing. They think there's opportunity and great things, so they're willing to spend a lot of money. They are willing to box themselves into disgusting tiny apartments at $1,000 a person and sleep on a fucking couch because they think that this area is amazing. So why do people do that? They do that because they believe that all the opportunity is here. They believe that this is that their ability to become an amazing artist, an amazing singer, they believe that their ability to start the world's next tech company that vision cannot be realized without moving to San Francisco. It cannot be realized without moving to New York. It cannot be realized without moving to Silicon Valley. I think that by continuing to tell people this lie, that we are continuing to perpetuate what causes gentrification. People move here because they buy into the bullshit that in order to be that 1 in 100,000 that becomes famous, that 1 in 100,000 that makes it big, and you've always heard about coming to New York to make it big, that you need to be here. So long as we continue to sell that lie, people will keep pouring in here. And so long as people keep pouring in here with the lack of housing that exists, we are going to continue to have these problems of being pushed out of our neighborhoods. So here is what I would propose. Number one, stop lying to people. Be honest about where technology is, where our culture is, and don't tell people that in order to become famous or successful, that they need to move here or that they need to move to Hollywood. People don't understand that the music scene in many of these towns has been going to shit over the past 30 years. It's almost like it's continuing to run on the steam of its reputation from the 70s and 80s. If you were a decent band in the 70s, you could actually get paid to play at a club. You could get paid. Who gets paid to play at clubs anymore in New York City? Really? I mean, how many clubs and how many bars and how many places have said, we'll give you free beer and exposure? Or, oh yeah, there's a record label A&R in the audience every night, and he may notice you if you come and play. We'll give you this great opportunity to show up, and we'll even give you some free beer. It's all about getting people to play for free. And there's never a record label A&R in the audience. And even if there is, they're after that 1 in 100,000 act, and let's face it, no offense, but that's not you. That's not you at all. They're never going to find you that way. And they trick so many individuals that kill themselves to move here and sleep on couches in disgusting apartments while giving up their life savings just for that chance, because they're selling them that lie that you come here to make it. And that's a bunch of bullshit. And then we look at technology and we look at how culture has shifted, how technology has shifted. We look at how my generation, which was a generation that thought that $15 for an album that cost $200,000 to produce was too much. My generation thought it was a ripoff to spend $15 on an album with music that they genuinely loved. That same generation of people will go on Twitch where some kid is on his Casio keyboard playing something that's kind of funky, kind of interesting, not exactly professionally produced, and they'll give him a donation of $10, $20, $30. They don't even own the recording. They don't own the album. They don't own anything. But here, just take it. That kid on Twitch with his Casio keyboard in middle of bumfuck Ohio, no offense, Michael Overdick. That kid in the middle of nowhere in Ohio, dead little town, just playing his keyboard on Twitch, can get $180 of donations in a night. Yet that person living in a city where an apartment that is a studio, that is a shitbox, that's the size of my bathroom, costs $2,600, can take all of his stuff to a club and get told you're playing for the exposure. This is the problem. We are still telling people that in 2017 that you need to move here for your artistic career to be successful. We tell people that you need to move here for a movie or TV career to be successful. I mean, just look at stuff online. Like, look at these people that have these shorts. They have these short, funny videos that they post on YouTube, and they get 8 to 16 million views a month. Some of these people on YouTube are making $10,000 to $30,000 a month off of viewerships of 8 million views a month. That's not multi-billionaire status. You may not have as much money as Mariah Carey or whatever, but that's pretty damn good. And you don't need to be in New York or Hollywood or any part of California to make that happen. And people don't get that. Nobody is pushing that. Nobody is saying, hey, Fuck going to New York City. Fuck going to California. Fuck going on Harvey Weinstein's couch. If you have a good idea and you're willing to work and develop it, you can get fans to support you from your home. Nobody says that. You got to go here. You got to go there. And the same thing when it comes to tech. And this is one of the areas where I really agree with Eli, the computer guy, even though I disagree on the white privilege part, where Eli, the computer guy, is telling people, you don't need to go to Silicon Valley to start your tech company. If you want to find coders, why can't, I mean, look, like IRC, GitHub, tech meetups in your local area, forums. I mean, just go to it, or even just going to a town where they have a lot of people with an education in the field, but they're willing to work for lower wages because a house there is $80,000, not $1.8 million. You know, we are beyond the requirement to be in a specific physical location to achieve a goal at this point. Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about the kid on Twitch making $180 a night streaming from his little Casio keyboard. They talk about how you need to go to New York. You need to play at pianos. You need to play at Arlene's Grocery. You need to play at whatever else. Like, fuck that. Nobody talks about that. Everybody talks about how you need to go to Hollywood in order to have a career in the movies and television and show business. But nobody talks about all the people online. Nobody talks about the people that just make money making funny skits in their apartments. One of the things that I'm really happy about, one of the very small silver linings to come out of this Me Too and the Harvey Weinstein and the Kevin Spacey shit, is that people are seeing that this is an ugly business. It's not just a joke in passing anymore that, oh, then, you know, that industry will eat you up and blah, blah, blah. People are seeing it for the disgusting, depraved garbage industry that it is. And that may cause more people to decide that's not exactly the way I want to spend my life. That's not exactly something that I want to support. That's good. Nobody wants to sit and talk about the individuals that have tens of thousands of subscribers, hundreds of thousands of subscribers with content that's much more interesting than mine, that are making $4,000 to $10,000 a month on YouTube from the middle of Des Moines, or at the top of a mountain in Wyoming, or from Alaska. Because it doesn't fit what people are used to. That doesn't fit with the preconceptions that people have when it comes to making it big in media or entertainment or news or reporting or journalism. But you can do that. And it is possible to do that. And I see these people on Twitch making $170 or $100 or $200 in donations just from their home with not a lot of people subscribed to them. And you got to compare that to playing a club for exposure in New York, for playing a club for exposure in California. You have to compare these people that are making $4,000 to $10,000 a month off of YouTube for making funny, viral, interesting clips to individuals that are killing themselves, absolutely killing themselves, trying to get a role, trying to get noticed by some TV executive. I mean, it's 2017. These models of killing yourself to hopefully get noticed by someone who will give you this 1 in 100,000 opportunity, that doesn't make dollars and it don't make sense. It's just not something that you should be focusing on when you could focus on all of these other ways of getting yourself out there to individuals. And our generation is a great place to start. As I've said before, I came from the generation where people thought that $15 for a $250,000 produced work from mainstream media was too much. Even if it cost $250,000 to make that album, fuck it, $15 is too much. My same generation that thought that is more than happy to give a $20 or a $30 or a $10 donation on Twitch on a regular basis to some dude in his underwear on Twitch with sweatpants playing his Casio keyboard. And that marks a real shift. That marks the idea that we want to support each other more than we want to support a predatory industry. And as more and more comes out, as more and more scandal comes out in Hollywood, as more shitbags like Harvey Weinstein, and trust me, there's a bunch of them, it's not just him, come out who were using their power as a gatekeeper to make sexual predation as common and as easy as grabbing an Oreo cookie to eat, there is going to be a lot more support and a much bigger push for people to move away from mainstream media and towards platforms like this, where people like you can directly support people like me, or more importantly, people who frankly actually need the money, not like me, but people who actually don't have other businesses that solely do entertainment, that you can support them directly with your money. So that rather than have, 10 people that destroyed their lives to get to the top to make millions of dollars, you have hundreds of thousands of people that may only make between $2,000 to $10,000 a month, but that's a living in many areas at $2,000 to $10,000 a month. Let's support that. Not only does that decrease the power of these gatekeepers that have been moral and ethically bankrupt, while, by the way, lecturing us for the past 15 years on how we're morally bankrupt because we would rather hit a button on our keyboard to get a file that plays on any device than take an hour round trip to Blockbuster to pay for something that only works on one device with copy protection. By the way, fuck you for that. In addition to giving a big middle finger to the individuals who have been lecturing us on morality and ethics while being morally bankrupt, we also get to support a more sustainable social landscape. We get to support communities in a more sensible way. We don't have hundreds of thousands of people pouring into tiny neighborhoods, kicking everybody who can't afford $3,000 a month out of their home. We get rid of that bullshit. We get people to go back to those towns that they were living in because they now have the opportunity there that they didn't think they had before. They can start the company online that they didn't think they could start. They could create the music that they wanted to create that they weren't creating before. And rather than get paid by some record label executive, they'll get paid by their 6,000 fans on Patreon that each give 50 cents or $2 a month, which is a completely sustainable model if you are willing to look outside the box, if you're willing to just think for a moment about what makes more sense, playing pianos or playing fucking Arlene's Grocery for exposure, or playing on Twitch for thousands of people to donate to you from the comfort of your home in a nice neighborhood where $600 a month actually gets you a nice apartment and not a fucking slab in a bathroom. When it comes to gentrification, what bothers me most is that people talk about how to address the symptoms of gentrification rather than actually fixing the issue. If someone has clogged arteries, we talk about giving them a little pill to help them out, but a good doctor is also going to say, hey, what do you eat 3 meals a day? McDonald's. Hey, maybe you should stop doing that because that's not good for your health. You address what's causing the issue, not just the symptoms. And addressing gentrification at the local level is not going to do a lot. Okay, you get a couple more apartments available. Great. Okay, you make it more expensive to speculate on real estate a little bit. Great. You still have hundreds of thousands of people pouring in from outside New York. Gentrification is an external problem when we talk about it as a social issue because gentrification is the result of people from outside of our locale moving to our locale. So by addressing it at the local level, we're only addressing the symptoms without addressing the full problem. In order to address gentrification properly, we need to think about it not just at the local level, but at a philosophical level and also at a country level. And I don't mean in terms of making new laws, I mean in terms of telling people the truth. Let's be honest with people and stop spreading the lie that you need to move to New York to become successful. Let's stop telling people the lie that if you want to be successful in show business, it's only going to happen if you move to Hollywood. That is not the case. And it is the case every single day that you have new people between crowdfunding, Patreon, YouTube ad revenue, Twitch donations, and all that other stuff, making their living of $2,000 to $10,000 a month, creating entertaining content online from the middle of bumfuck nowhere. And when you look at the predators in this business everywhere, when you rely on gatekeepers rather than being open to coming online and posting on Twitch and YouTube and SoundCloud and all these other platforms and being supported by PayPal or Patreon or Bitcoin or whatever, when you give so much power to a gatekeeper to choose you as the 1 in 100,000 or you and the 1 in 1 million to become famous, you give these individuals, you give these Harvey Weinsteins and all these other fuckfaces the power to be disgusting, to be morally and ethically bankrupt. You make sexual predation as easy and convenient for them as grabbing an Oreo and eating it because they have that level of power. You can take away that level of power from these individuals who have been lecturing us on morality and ethics when it came to piracy and the digital media revolution. Remember that stuff about 10 or 15 years ago? Remember when they said, hey, you're a criminal because you want to be able to hit a button and get a file or a copy of something that you can play on your portable device, on this device, and in the living room? That made you a criminal. It couldn't be that you liked convenience. It couldn't be that you liked being able to watch stuff on the go or use media as you saw fit. No, it must be that you're a criminal because you don't want to take a 1-hour round trip to Blockbuster to get a scratch DVD or a scratch Blu-ray with copy protection. It's only going to work in one device. No, must be that you're a fucking criminal. These people have been lecturing us on morality and ethics for the longest period of time. And they are also the individuals that are the most opposed to change. Even when it just came to something like, hey, I would like to be able to watch media on my portable device. I'd like to pay you money for that. And they didn't give us an option for it. They are very averse to change. And when it comes to the sexual predation thing, they are also, as you're going to see, as you're going to realize over the next 5 to 10 years, they're going to be very averse to change. And we can force that change. We can force change that not only makes the media landscape better, we can force change that fixes our local social issues as well, that gets rid of a lot of these negative issues that stem from gentrification if we simply stop supporting a lot of mainstream media, stop running out to watch the next newest blockbuster film, and stop lying to people and telling them that in order to be successful in X industry, you must move to Manhattan or Brooklyn. You must move to Hollywood. You must move to Silicon Valley. You must move to San Francisco. It's no longer true. And there's a lot of stuff on independent media. It's actually really good. You're going to hear the news on here. You're going to hear viewpoints on here that you don't hear when you turn on Fox or CNN. You're going to see clips that talk about the human condition, that are genuinely interesting, that dig deep into social issues that just doesn't happen anymore. I remember watching 25th Hour with Ed Norton and just being amazed at how much they dug through in that movie, how much character development, how much of the issues in friendship that they dive into. Do you see that happening anymore? It's just movies like The Hangover and sequels and prequels to all this kind of nihilistic crap that's just that elevates degeneracy to this ideal that we should all march towards. And why are we supporting this, man? Why are we supporting this when there's so much better stuff out there? So that's my view on gentrification. Don't just look at it as a local issue. Don't just fix the symptoms. Fix the underlying root causes. And those underlying root causes, to me, I believe, are the lie that in 2017, we have not made any progress, that we are just where we were in 1975, where if you want to be successful in a specific thing, you must move to that town. Again, not true. Not true. That's it for today, and as always, I hope that you learned